Welcome back to another edition of AGI Schools Out. You know, everybody thinks AI in education is a thing, but nobody's really talking about how hard it is to implement. So we're having conversations with the people who are actually doing the work to make sure that our students are prepared for their tomorrow, not our yesterday. And today I am honored to be joined by Amanda Wilkerson, who is an assistant faculty lead at Ivy Tech Community College. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, where you're from.
Good morning.
Hello, Amanda.
Good morning. I have been at Ivy Tech for about 6 years now. It all kind of blurs together. As assistant faculty lead and instructional designer. I also am a statewide curriculum committee chair for the informatics curriculum committee, where we do a lot of our AI work. We're working on getting that AI pathway lifted so that we can start that for our students in the fall. Before that, I worked in K-12 technology for over a decade. That was very interesting and really got my passion for education going there. But it helps me also have some perspective on what our students are coming from and what they need. And Central Indiana has been my home basically my entire life. So that's kind of where I come from, where I hail from, just south of Indy, pretty much forever.
Oh, really? Where'd you go to high school?
Columbus North.
Okay. I'm a Noblesville, Indy North Sider, now Carmel for the last 15 years, but I've lived in Fishers. I'm pretty much Hamilton County all the way around.
Yeah,
You and
Bartholomew and
I
Johnson
met
County
actually
has
just
been
the other day. Johnson County, I'm quite familiar with. Yes, that is definitely Greater Indianapolis area. You and I met just the other day in the SAIL AI certification group. I don't know how I keep getting out of these things, if it's because I am so passionate about AI and education or it's because I have a podcast, but somehow I end up being one of the non-educators in a room full of educators, and I am not complaining. I love being a part of the conversation, but tell us a little bit about that endeavor, if you would.
well, I am connected to Jenny Cooper from my K-12 tech director days. And that's how I think she and I are connected on LinkedIn. And then um, Ryan Murray, who was part of that facilitation, had mentioned a call out or something like that. I feel like on LinkedIn or somewhere there was a call out saying, if you're interested in doing that. And so I reached out and said, yes, I love doing those sort of things. And K-12 is really close to my heart. And so even though I'm in higher education now, I really want to be a part of what that looks like. And we have a lot of dual credit at Ivy Tech, and we need a way to be able to connect our new AI initiatives to our dual credit faculty and our students that are coming up. So I feel like that initiative is a great way to bridge that gap between what our students are going to be learning prior to getting to us and everything that it's sort of that unknown wild west right now with AI and the literacy is really my AI literacy and understanding is sort of my soapbox or my baby project, I guess you would say, as far as what students need to know. Because if they don't really know the fundamentals of using it, they can't really go farther with it if they can't get the basics in. And starting in high schools, even younger than that, even, but definitely high school moving forward to higher ed. And instructors and teachers, and we all have to be prepared in order to pass that down to our students. So this certification is a great way to have instructors showcase the skills that they already have and then skill up some places where they feel like they might have some gaps. They're doing a great thing there at CIESD.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can we start with the K through 12 and then we'll move into higher ed? I know
Yeah.
you work in higher ed, but I have some. So one of my first theories is that we can teach age appropriate. I mean, this technology is going to be part of changing our world. I think it's hard to argue now that we're not entering the kind of the industrial age of artificial intelligence, and it's going to be as profound as the cotton gin or electricity or the steam engine, all things that really change the way that we work and live. And so I think even in K through 6, we can have age appropriate conversations that not only show kids like hey, here's what bias in technology is. Here's what bias in human beings is. Like, so let's just talk about bias, right? But if they understand almost at a, I always go back to the Schoolhouse Rock. What a bill going through legislature when I was a little kid, right? If they have that type of education about what's happening under the hood of these models, like how they work, then my theory is by the time they're 14 or 15 years old, they're going to be much less prone to anthropomorphic inappropriate relationships with chatbots that are unhealthy, like we saw with the character AI Daenerys Targaryen, and the character and the child, the 14-year-old who took his own life in Florida. Like, I just think if by the time you're 14 you understand what a prediction model is at a base level, you understand how these things are printing out the answers, it's a lot harder to fall in love with it because you understand it's not sentient, it's a tool.
Right. Absolutely. And I do think the separation, it's so abstract for them, and they're so used to connecting with humans online, but humans that they don't really see and humans that they don't have that personal connection with. And up to this point, they really have been humans. And so having that disconnect that now they are still connecting, they are still conversating, but it's not really a human. And that's hard for them to separate. And so showing them like here's the difference when you're interacting. You might still be in a chat room or a forum place where your other human beings are answering questions and responding to you. But when you're in this space, it is a computer who is answering you in this logical way or pulling this information and like you say, learning what that looks like and how to differentiate where you are in the internet space. But I think right now it's just hard for them to discern where they are because they're just so used to being in that area for whatever reason, for all the different, even just Xbox party spaces or chat spaces. It's just they're just used to being there. And so they forget that sometimes those spaces aren't other humans. It's an AI space now, or getting more and more prone to be an AI space.
That's a phenomenal. You're bringing up something I hadn't even considered, which is they are so used to, if they're in Roblox or one of these games, like just interacting with and conversing with other human beings up till now, that they might be on the other side of the world, they've never met, they don't see physically. And so once you introduce something that is so good at mimicking human language that it actually sounds like, and can pass a Turing test. I mean, we're way past the Turing test, right? So
Right.
when these LLMs excel the Turing test, then how does a 7-year-old differentiate between an LLM and a kid in Russia who's playing with him on Roblox?
Right. But it goes back to it's a skill that you're teaching them that you wouldn't want to connect that personally with another human that you don't know or that's a stranger to you. You wouldn't want to share information with a stranger that's personal that connects them to where you live. You're teaching them the same underlying competencies with sharing too much online just like you would with another human. So like you said before, you're kind of teaching them bias, generally speaking, the same way you're teaching it about AI bias. You're teaching the social norms of connecting with strangers the same way you're teaching them. So hopefully some of those connections from a social space, you just kind of putting context with it in AI. It's not that much different than what we're trying to teach them about safety online and safety with um, sharing too much, I guess, in general with social media. It's just now in the context of AI.
I could not agree more. We obviously missed the bus when it came to teaching them that with social media. And I'm not blaming even our society because it was so new, right? But I've read The Anxious Generation. I'm watching Australia try to ban social media for kids under 16. And it's kind of like prohibition in the United States. Like once the monkey's out of the box, getting it back in the box is pretty crazy. So I hope we get ahead of this. But one of the things I want to throw at you that I think is the inverse of this that I'm starting to realize in the workplace is prompt engineering, right? So to really get non-generic answers out of a foundation model that's kind of an out-of-the-box model. Essentially, you have to explain to it what role it's filling, what what outcomes you're looking for, what problem you're trying to solve, and maybe give it a little bit of examples of what good enough looks like. Now, imagine if every boss carried that level of communication to every subordinate that they asked to go do something, rather than just saying, hey, go make this happen in one or two sentences, and then the end product gets presented to them and they're like, that's not what I was thinking at all. Like, I see a real correlation between a functionally prompting and actually communicating with other human beings what it is that you're looking to get them to do or help you with.
Yeah, the same type of competencies, right? Communication. Um, I think a lot of times we look at AI as this scary place or this new place that we have to limit and block and sort of push over here arm's length away, especially with our students. And there's so many ways that if we embrace it, we could really use it to our advantage. And that communication tool is one way. I mean, you have to be really good at prompting or problem framing is the way they, the terminology, the problem framing to ask it the right questions so that it gives you the right answers. But you really need to be able to problem frame, like you say, in the job space to be able to tell anyone what you need from them. And so teaching students how to problem frame with a group project, how to be a good leader and problem frame to your staff, is just good communicating. And we always talk about those durable skills and those soft skills that students need when they move out into the workplace, and how that's such a struggle these days with technology is limiting that, or students are going to lose those critical thinking skills when they use too much AI and move out into the world. But I think if we shift our focus from all the things that they're not going to have or that they're losing, and how can we use AI, because it's not going anywhere, honestly, it's not, how can we utilize it as a tool to beef up those skills that we think that it I keep calling it the Wild West because it's kind of what it is at the moment, but the Wild West of AI, if we just kind of
Yeah.
let it free fall, they might lose all of those things. It just we need to, if we rein it in and we start focusing, we can teach communication skills and have them have a real life practice place where they can practice on an AI model, asking it questions, seeing what am I getting back from this? Is this really what I wanted? When I asked that question, maybe I didn't ask a great question because I got a bunch of junk back from it. So I need to do better about asking my questions better. And that helps me say, okay, I thought I was really good at asking a question or framing my problem. And I realize I'm really not. I'm not that great at it at all. And so I need to work on that. And I can practice on the AI instead of another human having to be there all the time with me and giving me feedback, because maybe that human isn't great at the feedback also, but I'm getting real life um, ways to touch points to improve upon. So I think that would be great. I think all of those little pieces can go into those competencies in school, for instance, whether it's K through 5, whether it's 5 through 12, whether it's higher ed. I mean, there are places for that always, because even someone who is in first or second grade might, I mean, they're more willing, I think, to fail forward when they're in the younger grades than the older grades. They always have more of a perspective of what failure looks like when they're younger. They're more willing to say whatever and get back information, be okay with it being wrong. And it would help them see things a little bit differently. Um, I think it would be neat to have them be asking questions and see what they get back, because they're more willing to wonder than the older students are. So,
My wife, when I met her, was an educator. She worked in high school education as an English teacher, and now she's a social worker. But she always says I miss my calling because every time I talk to an educator, like my mind just I can't I I'm so passionate about it that what you just said, like 10 things just came to mind. And I don't even know which string to pull at. When I talk to business leaders, I can usually follow kind of a hierarchy of, okay, now this is what we should talk about next. But the first thing that you just said that really stood out to me was if you focus on the problem increases. If you focus on the solution increases. That's what I heard you say. And I couldn't agree with that more. Let's stop worrying about what we don't want to do or worrying about kids cheating. First off, kids who cheat, and they're going to cheat, and you can try to build as many like AI proof systems as you want, but the ones who are good at cheating, it's like a game for them, and they'll stay ahead of the curve and be able to cheat. So let's focus on the kids who aren't trying to cheat. My 15-year-old, when she first came to me, she said, okay, dad, I'm using ChatGPT, and I promise I'm not using it to cheat. It actually helps me with my homework. I am not using it. And I was like, Mia, I'm just going to tell you something. Like, the future is artificial intelligence. There's only two things you could tell me right now that would highly concern me. One is that you're not using artificial intelligence and learning how to interact with it. And the other is that you have some kind of weird relationship with it, in which case we definitely need to talk. But let's stop focusing on whether or not they're going to hack everything and cheat, and let's start focusing on what it looks like to build those skills. Like you were just saying, like, what does it look like to make a hybrid human, not in the sense of part computer, part human, but in a sense of part computer skills, part EQ, part design thinking, like these skill sets of the future. What you're really describing is somebody who has a marketing mindset combined with a software engineer combined with somebody who has like leadership and management dynamics all wrapped into one, who's then able to leverage technology to become a superhuman and do tons of work in a very effective way.
Yes. I think that would be ideal, but that's also um a complete shift from what we're used to. So that's sort of scary in the education space because you have to redefine how you do everything. So, and that's a lot of lift, and that's a lot of reworking traditional ways of going about assessing students, going about teaching students, going about delivering the information. You have to shift your mindset. It's a complete mindset shift that I think a lot of folks are just not ready for because it's unknown, and it's the human nature to be um, afraid of change or leery of change or not quite sure. It doesn't feel extremely broken. So why try to, mess with that too much is the mentality of some. And then some feel like it's very broken. So we need to really fix it. And we have two different camps kind of battling against each other. It's in all the different spaces that I'm in, I feel those two camps sort of constantly at arms with each other, trying to determine which way is the better way to go. And I think it's somewhere in the middle. I mean, you have to be cautiously optimistic because you have to you have to understand that, like you said, the cheater's going to cheat. The people who are going to do that, like the hackers, are going to be there. The people that are going to be malicious with technology are going to be there, and you have to have a balanced understanding of how that's going to work. But that is, let's say, the 20%. And then the 80% of all the other students still need to be able to move forward and still need to be able to push their learning and to modernize and to do all the things that they need to do without the detriment of that 20%. And and I think sometimes we get in a rut of focusing on that 20% too much. And then we forget that we still need to move forward. And so that's what kind of in AI, I think, where we are at this moment. Industry can move forward because they're not as concerned. They're concerned with the security aspect, and they're concerned with the data privacy aspect. And those are all things that they're typically concerned with in their business areas. And so it's not as foreign to them, I think, to focus in those spaces. But the academic integrity isn't something that they're focusing on, and they can move forward in those spaces. They can afford to have their data sets and their data models locally. They can afford to do all of that because that's where they're going to put their money because they feel that's important to their spaces. And in education, we don't have that reach, that budget, those things that we can accommodate. as quickly. And then when we choose to focus on academic integrity instead of innovation, then we really get stuck. And so until we have these camps finding somewhere in the middle, that's kind of we get a hamster wheel, I think. I feel like someone on Monday said that, a hamster wheel, maybe it was you, but someone in our sale meeting said it feels like a hamster wheel where we're just constantly just having the conversation and we can't get out of that moving forward because we're constantly talking about the academic integrity. So,
Yeah, well, one of the things you said a few minutes ago that really has always resonated with me, and I think it's something that we always have to keep in mind. Suzuki Roshi, one of the Zen masters of Japan, who wrote a lot of books that people read, wrote a book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, and the theory behind that philosophy is that in the beginner's mind, the possibilities are limitless, and then in the expert's mind, they are very finite. And so, you mentioned the exploration willingness of little kids, and I think sometimes we need to take a step back, whether we're in industry, we're in education, or whatever, and take off the expert's mind cap of I know how to do this. This is how I've done it. This is how it's done. I mean, if you look at you may not be familiar with Anduril, but Anduril is more or less like the Iron Man Tony Stark real life company that creates like drones and just all kinds of crazy warfare stuff that the Department of Defense is buying. They're probably more advanced than Palantir. If you look at whether you like Elon or not, if you look at how successful most of his companies are, like half the reason that those two companies are so successful is because they hire really young software engineers fresh out of college because they want them to have that beginner's mindset of there are no limits on what we could possibly do with all this. Like they can see a future that some of their older software engineers are like, we tried that 20 years ago, that's not possible, kid. Right. And so that I feel like that's a very prevalent, at least in higher ed and probably in K through 12 as well, that sometimes that's a prevalent mindset of like, this is how it's done, this is how we've done it, and damn it, this is how we're going to continue to do it. And that's maybe something that we have to take a step back from.
yeah, absolutely. We've always done it this way, is just the quote of the day a lot of times. And even though we do have pockets of wanting to be innovative, I think the want and desire is definitely there. But the things that we've tried before, or we get bogged down in how we interpret policy or how we interpret the current rules, or instead of being futuristic and innovative on, okay, this is what it is in policy and rule, but how can we make what we want to do fit into that? Instead of that mindset, we get um, it, it always seems too heavy or too hard. And I think if we took that hat off, we would it would lighten our burden a little bit because I think we can. Anything is possible. It's just how hard you want to work for it. It's really what it boils down to. It takes time, effort, money. You have to put all
Sure.
that into it.
But I think if you look at the ROI on this, like for one, I do think it's amazing. Again, we're still in K through 12, right? We'll get on to higher
Yeah.
education, and I think Avitech's done some amazing things. So I want to get into that most definitely. But if you look at the K through 12 space of any industry, they probably have some of the best sandbox vertical AI products available to them. So if you look at Magic School, School AI, like there are several platforms that a school system can put in that actually walks teachers and students through how to leverage the technology. So I do think that if I was in K through 12, I would be advocating for that. The other way to go is Google probably makes Google Workspace like they're going to continue to make it more and more available because they want to be in the K through 12 space, right? But to me, that's where there's more of a learning curve. That's where there's more of a pivot, and like you'd have to have teachers who are willing to figure out how to use this stuff best as it goes along. Whereas if you're in a Magic School or School AI, it's somewhat going to walk you through it. It I just think one of the reasons my wife left teaching is because she was so overwhelmed with paperwork that she didn't really get to spend time with the students the way she wanted to. Those summers that she originally signed up for, we have a 27-year-old and a 23-year-old. She got to spend those summers with them, but like by the time the 15-year-old was born, those summers had been narrowed down to a very small space. So like the real initial ROI to me is the assistance for the teacher to allow them to go back to spending time, FaceTime with students, and let the artificial intelligence handle some of the admin work.
Yeah. Productivity is a huge space that it can help educators. I think the problem lies with the data privacy aspect of FERPA, and that's the conversation always revolves around where are you you can utilize it for a lot of great things, but where's that information going once you put it into the model? So if you have an in-house um, platform or program that you're using, do you have data sharing agreements with them? Do you know for sure where that student information is going? How much of that information are you putting in about the student? Is it personally identifiable? All the normal things that we have to worry about with student information. Do you know for sure where it ends up? And that is unknown at the moment. Um, Generally speaking, like if you're just using ChatGPT, for instance, if you just go out to ChatGPT, even if you pay for Pro, you still don't know for sure where it ends up. So you would have to, I think, from an IT department in K 12 or anywhere, you have to really dive deep into that. And people don't have all those answers. And so it's better safe than sorry that you just say you're not allowed to do that. So then that limits what you put in to the model and then how you can use it. So, and then you keep narrowing down what you can do for productivity for an educator, because if I can't put a student's response in and help give feedback on what that response to be, then I can't put data in to help analyze different grade spectrums of what I'm trying to do. Then I can't put, then I can't, it becomes a can't list. And so then what can I do with it? Okay, then I can do some very simple communication type things, which are great. And anything I can do is great. But I think it all boils down to that data privacy. So from a school perspective, if we really, really focused there and answered that question, it would open up a huge amount of opportunity for instructors and teachers in the K-12 space and beyond to be able to really harness that element of productivity for them. They could analyze data better. They could do just basic like productivity type things better. They could automate some things. They could use agents to assist them a little bit better because they could have agents in places that they really can't now because of student data privacy into systems that they can't really have those in now. But they're limited again by that one question that we just can't seem to get. And maybe some schools have it answered, but as a general whole, from what I can tell, is that seems to be what we always go back to is that student data privacy. And if there's platforms and programs out there that are answering the question, it just doesn't seem to be widely known by everyone. Or maybe it's just by me. I don't know, but because I don't have all the answers, I'm no expert by any stretch. But yeah,
You're actually the first person that's ever brought that up that I've talked to in education. And I come from healthcare. So this actually resonates with me 100%. So, as a small healthcare company that I was with, 30-person community paramedicine company, I'm now with an AI application company. But when I was with that company, at one point in time, we looked at what would it look like to become AI native, like you're talking about, to where everything is where we can use agents, where it has access to all of our data, to all of those things. And taking a step back, right? So the whole idea of data privacy and where's it actually really going? My initial, before we tried to even become AI native, my initial conversations with the CEO and my recommendations were, I understand Microsoft doesn't, it kind of sucks to use their AI. Like it's not that great, right? But we need to either do it there or we need to move everything to Google because, like you said, Claude, ChatGPT, like we're not sure what they do with our data. And beyond that, like, these are brand new companies. They're not even profitable yet. So if we have some huge data breach that we end up getting sued as a school system, as a healthcare company, like, we may not even have anybody to turn back on if we go with one of these brand new companies, because they will declare bankruptcy and it's all on us, right? Whereas Microsoft and Google, like, so if I was looking at it from that perspective in education, Google Classroom would look very, very good to me, because if there is a data breach, not that anybody wants one, like,
Right.
you can hold Google accountable and you can bet they're going to fix it and bet their reputation on it at that level. Beyond that, I think what you're talking about, what I discovered was you would have to move everything into what's called a neo cloud environment. So everything has to operate inside of a very, very secure cloud environment like Snowflake or Databricks, and it is astronomically expensive. A, to move all your data over there, B, to pay the architects and the engineers to, like, but you can do it all in a closed environment using
Yeah.
the technology, but it's way more expensive than would work for small healthcare or K through 12 education or anybody outside of MIT or Harvard that has, probably A, the staff, and B, the bandwidth financially to handle something like that. But that's a very
Right.
interesting that you brought that up. No one has brought that up to me before.
I think that's the sticking point that would open up a lot of doors for use in education. If we would just answer the question, I think it does boil down to money, like you said, for Snowflake or Databricks to be able to do something in-house, because in-house would be the ideal answer. Every district have their own in-house data repository slash model to work from. I mean, that would be great. But budget, we all know, is also the huge issue in education. So that's just not logical unless we have just some angel donors somewhere who are willing to do that. But really, since we can't, then we need to find those couple good answers. It doesn't have to be one singular answer, but those couple good answers, and really get for companies who are listening, like, answer that question and answer it really well. And I think you'll open up a lot of doors and opportunities for education clients to come in and say, I'm willing to take that step forward now because I really want to do this. And now I feel like the privacy question is answered, because seems like it always revolves around that privacy question.
Well, and it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to do so, if I was a magic school or a school AI, in order to really offer that type of confidence, really what we need is like a government level certification process that a company like that can go through, where they're certified as safe and secure. Right? We don't really have anything like that at this point in time. But if the state of Indiana or the federal government was to sign off and say, yes, the way that Magic School AI is managing and securing their customers' data it complies with everything that we at the federal Department of Education believes is best practices, then that it would take something like that in my mind's eye, because again, a startup company, God loves startups, and I'd love to start one myself. But like, I'm not betting the bank on a startup, right? That's why foundational companies like Salesforce and Microsoft, and like, they're not going to get disrupted overnight, because people trust them, and they
Right.
trust that if they do something wrong, they will pay for it and they will fix it.
Right. And that they have the funding behind them that allows them to get it right, I guess, and that they know that they
Yes.
need to because they're so big. Yeah. I mean, it's a hard question to answer. And I know that everyone, like, it's on the top of minds. Data privacy and security is not just, a flippant thing that companies don't worry about. But with schools and FERPA, it's just so intensely important that it really creates a barrier if we don't have a really good answer. So yeah, absolutely. I think a way to certify that universally would be helpful.
That's awesome. All right, let's move on. So we get kids through K through 12. They have hopefully a little bit of AI literacy. They actually understand what they're going on. Maybe they can show us what the tools can do a little bit because they do have, I think we forget like we're not just talking about prediction models anymore in the sense that it spits out words, but we've got these image generation models, world models, music, like put those in the hands of kids like with a big imagination and wow, who knows what's going to happen. I'm not surprised that Ben Affleck just sold Netflix an artificial intelligence company that he started that does all the back end work for Hollywood. I'm not surprised for two reasons. One, because now he just pretty much protected actors and automated away everybody else's job on the set. But I do think you like there's some huge expenses in creativity when you get to digital creativity and putting a technology in the minds of a new generation of creators like wow, things could be really cool going forward.
Yeah, they're not afraid to reach far and, like I think I said earlier, like fail forward and do some really creative things that are just like, give this a try. Like I'm always like, let's just give it a try. And if it doesn't work, then we can check that one off and try something else. We'll try this next thing and then maybe it will work. Something will latch on. And some people say that's like throwing spaghetti at a wall. But I think sometimes when you've tried all the logical, you've gone some strategy ways and they haven't worked, then sometimes you just have to be super creative and step outside the box. And I think young kids are the best people to help you with stepping outside of your box because as you get older you get a little more jaded and you get a little more like we've tried that and that didn't work and the kids don't have that um, bias like we talked about. They don't have that bias. They're just open to whatever. They're willing to try it, so you just have to listen to them and be open to it.
They've got that beginner's mind. Yes,
Yeah.
most definitely. All right, so we cultivate the beginner's mind. We teach a little safety, and we make sure we maintain a human ability. And actually, we need to probably increase human ability to connect with each other because different skill sets are definitely going to have to come to the table and work cohesively in the workspace going forward. It's kind of a stretch to say, okay, you're software engineer. Like physics type of person all of a sudden like we need to retrain them as they come through K through 12 to just have like this robust networking type personality along with their, but that's probably not going to really happen. But what we can do probably as they're young is teach different kids with different personalities how to work together in teams and how to solve problems in a design thinking kind of way. And now we get to into post secondary education and first off, community colleges have offered something that is becoming more and more attractive to people as time goes on anyway, because a lot of people are leaving universities with 4 year degrees and not getting as good of a job as they used to with a 4 year degree, and they have an immense amount of debt. To me, this is a window of opportunity. It almost reminds me, I don't, you're probably not anywhere near as old as I am, but back in the 90s when I was about to graduate high school in the early 90s, late 80s, like DeVry, ITT. Like there were a whole lot of certification programs in IT that were very popular and that were landing people jobs quickly. I feel like AI is opening up that same type of opportunity in post secondary education. And we may all have to become lifetime learners as fast as this technology is changing.
Yeah, I remember those. I remember those certifications, and I think the thing about AI is we're in a very unique space because you have the really deep technical space of AI where you are um, building the what I guess I would call the really deep computer science, the engineering, the technical model, the very heavy math, the very heavy. I'm really creating the backbone of AI, and then you have the space of the technicians where I need to understand what AI is doing, but I can kind of black box a little bit of what's going on in the deep technical. I have to have a general idea, but I don't have to get into the weeds that a lot of the heavy computer scientists need to do in order to utilize it and to really make it function. And then I have the super user and the general users of AI for more like productivity on the surface, the everyone AI for everyone space. And so you have three different sectors, I guess I'll call them, and this is just my personal viewpoint on it, that you can jump into AI with. And the certifications are hard because a lot of them are geared towards like generative AI, which is more of that super user
Hmm.
business case spaces where they're showing you how to do prompt engineering certifications, or they're showing you how to um, be extremely productive in whatever business use case you have, or they're on the far end of that extremely technical dive deep into the model certification space. And those are all great depending on what you want to do with it. But I think what we are finding is that those folks were already kind of the deep technical folks were already going down that road and have been for quite some time because AI is not brand new. AI has been around for a long time. It's just become a more it's kind of like when computers had been around for so long, but now everyone had them in their house, and now we all had a computer. So personal computing was the rage. It's sort of that time frame where AI is now in everyone's house, so it's all the rage. But AI is not new, and going back to certifications, I kind of got on a little trip there, but um, I think the certifications are great, but they are um, you can you can go overboard with them, I guess is my opinion. Where I think AI is going to be not standing alone, I guess is my point. Where we're going to get to a point where AI is just a part of everything. So you just have to have your business, your industry, you will just need to know how it fits with you. And the certification will be more on that edge of what I talked about, where you need to have the literacy and the productivity understanding. And whatever needs to go deeper than that will come from your industry or whatever you're in. Because it seems like it stands by itself right now. And the applied aspect of it does right now because we're especially at Ivy Tech, we're filling a gap of the technician space because that's where a lot of people can't just shift from on their own. They're trying to get positions there. Um, but ultimately, if I'm a data scientist by trade or I'm a medical clinical person, that's still going to be my trade, but I need to understand how AI fits into those. Or I might be an engineer by trade. I need to figure out how AI fits into those. I'm not necessarily going to be um eventually. Like right now we're in that space, but I'm not going to be just an AI data scientist. I'm going to be still just a data scientist. It's just AI is going to take over those competencies that I had to do manually before. And I think that's where we're struggling to everybody wants it to be an AI job. It's still the jobs. It's just AI is now when you used to say like Excel came on the scene as the spreadsheet for data. And so we didn't have to do them all on grade paper or by hand or on our tablets or whatever. And it's the same idea, I guess. So be careful of your certifications because they're everywhere and what you can learn on your own and pick the ones that you think are going to be meaningful for you, I guess is my soapbox there, is because I see so many of them and you can spend a lot of money and you can spend a lot of time and get a lot of those certifications that all ultimately do the exact same thing. Figure out what niche you want to be in and how you really want to make sure you understand AI and go there with it because ultimately you need the skill that it applies to and AI. AI doesn't really stand on its own unless you're just trying to get the literacy part of it. That's the only part that I think stands on its own. And I think I veered from your question. I'm sorry. I got on a little soapbox there. But
No, no, I like it. I was just kind of thinking through an analogy as you were saying, because I agree with most of what you said. The attention is all you need paper that was released in 2017, and the invention of transformer changed artificial intelligence from machine learning to something that is advancing more rapidly than any technology we've ever seen. So
yeah.
I do feel like, artificial intelligence is it it is a new branch of technology, and robotics probably has not had its chat gpt moment yet, but as soon as it does, we will see mass release or injection of robotics into a lot of industries, and that may not all look like Elon Musk's like biped robots, but you robotics will be used as smart, intelligent machines will be in the physical world, and that will be another huge game changer.
Yeah.
Even in the sense of healthcare, like my co-host on one of the podcasts, like I'm always like, yeah, I don't know why they're trying to replace healthcare people with robots. Like until little babies that are raised with Rosie the robot grow up, like most people are not comfortable with a robot taking care of them. I guarantee you, boomers, 90% or a large swath of them would be like, hell no, get that thing away from me. But what she brought
Right.
up was, what about when you need something, when you have to use the restroom and you're old and you can't clean yourself up? What about when you need to be bathed? What about all the things where you don't want a human being taking care of you? Wouldn't you rather a robot there? And I'm like, yes, that's a great entry level. You're right. I didn't even think about that. There will be entry level places for that. But to the analogy that you were talking through, I think of a kind of, I think you're 100% on. I think I'm trying to think of like a construction analogy, right? So the AI scientists, that's like the people that build the materials that houses are built out of, right? And those kids, first off, are going to go towards that anyway. The people who
Oh,
want to be an AI scientist want to be that type of, they grow up thinking, I love physics. I love, all this just crazy stuff that at least now I can get paid like a professional athlete if I get good at it. So I'm going down that rabbit hole, right? But you also are going to need the architects, which is another skill set I think will probably be the MBA degree of the future. The person who can sit back, who understands just enough about how models work, and understands enough about business to figure out how to architect a system,
the
and
strategy.
that will optimize business outcomes, right? And then and then you will need like your developer, so like your company leader who's going to pull all these people together. But everybody else, I would agree, like on a construction site, all those people generally understand construction. And if you gave them any tool that was laying around a construction site, whether they pour concrete or they're a carpenter, chances are they're going to know how to use that tool. Maybe not as well. Maybe the carpenter won't know how to use the concrete smoothing out tool as well as the guy who's actually focused on concrete, but he'll totally know what to do with it and could do it if he had to. And I think that's kind of that's the kind of general understanding and use that everybody in the world is going to have when it comes to leveraging artificial intelligence. We're all going to have a basic understanding, but we're also going to have to hone in on, am I still do I use it for marketing?
Right.
Am I the data analytics person? Am I deploying it for sales and customer service? Maybe now it takes a 3-person customer service team instead of a 13-person customer service team, but those 3 people need to really understand customer service so that they can tell whether or not what the technology is doing is good, and how to steer it if it's not.
Right.
That's kind of what I hear you saying, and I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So I love I well I love that you use the word super user. You're the only person in education I've heard use that, and that is definitely a new skill set. Like I now work with some software engineers who are Silicon Valley guys, and like they are way smarter than me. I mean, I would never even begin to compare. But navigating large language models like is a different skill set. I'll just say that. Like sometimes they're surprised by what I can get out of a large language model. I think because as a software engineer, they're probably thinking they need to help it more than it needs to be helped in order to get an optimal outcome out of it. And so that expert mindset versus the beginners comes in there. But there are definitely new skills. I don't disagree with you that spending a bunch of money on certifications is a bad idea. And going back to the construction thing, right? You can come with I'm a certified carpenter, but it's when you build something and just actually show that developer what your output looks like, that he's like, I don't give a damn if you're certified or not. Like, you build good cabinets.
Right.
You're hired. I want you building my cabinets. And I think that is some of the recommendations that I hear on the back end and podcasts and stuff is start building a GitHub portfolio. Start building, and maybe it's not GitHub, maybe it's Figma, maybe wherever your industry does stuff in technology, start building a portfolio of that so that you can walk into an employer and say, yeah, I know how to use these things. Look, here's the use case. Here's the projects that I've done.
Yeah. And I think my key point is you're going to kind of need a niche. Generally, AI is what you're interested in. And so you can have a foundation, like you said, of the using the construction analogy of generally speaking construction and all the tools. But if you had that carpenter certification, that would be your specialty. So carpentry is your specialty, and
Yeah.
how is AI going to help you with that is where you might go, and you might get a certification in that or something specific. And because a lot of the certifications are so generalized, like, just make sure that you know what you're getting into, because just because it says AI on it, it might not be for you. If you're just, I think Alice in Wonderland quote, do you know where you're going or how to get there? It just depends on where you're going. And if you don't know where you're going, anywhere you end up is going to be okay because you don't know where you're going. So the road to get you there is irrelevant. And so it's just sort of like, that's my favorite thing is, if you find your end result. I want to be a data scientist in the healthcare space, and but I really love AI. Okay, those are three things that help me understand what I need to learn about in AI so that I can be an AI specialist. But at least I know those two things about healthcare and data science that I can use as my backbone for how I'm going to use AI, because I can use it in so many ways. I'm not making imagery. I might learn how to because I think it's fun and a part of it, but that's not going to be my focus because I'm focusing on data and numbers. And, I want to go there, but maybe I want to work in graphic design. There, I want to do more computer vision. I want to do more image space. I want to look at more that side of AI. And so, I find your niche and go that way with it, because AI is so big and so broad that you could spend a lot of time spinning your wheels and not really get where you want to go with it. Just thinking that you want to specialize in AI is a pretty broad space. So that's what I mean when I say that. Yeah.
That is I could not have articulated that better myself. That is a good place. It's almost an hour. That is a good place probably to wrap up. I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this conversation.
It's been
You are
great.
one bright lady. I will put your LinkedIn in the show notes. Is there anywhere else you'd like people to get a hold of you if they have more questions, or they realize how bright you are and want to get you on one of their boards or committees?
I think LinkedIn is a great place to start. Yep. I try to check my messages often. So I think that'd be perfect.
Well, thank you, Amanda. This has been a really great conversation.
Yes, it's been awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
We will have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
Things just get real. Looks like this dude's riffing on 11 Labs. Is this guy using 11 Labs? And I wonder what model he'll work with next week. Yeah, ride that wave.